Enjoy our podcast? Go to surfingthetsunami.com to discover an amazing wisdom and wellness platform designed to take ancient ideas down to street level with practical tools and takeaways delivered by some of the world's greatest thinkers, authors, and innovators. Sync up with a growing community of like-minded people from around the world on a journey to self-awareness, mindfulness, and fulfilling their dreams. The Wisdom Feed Plus membership is a perfect place to take your next steps on your personalized success path to a happier and healthier life. You can't stop the waves, but you can learn how to surf. Go to surfingthetsunami.com today.
Given the reality that we are all a sand mandala, just waiting for the worldly winds to blow us into the river.
Welcome back to the StreetSmart Wisdom Podcast. I am Steve Stein, the founder of Better Listen and Wisdom Feed Plus. For 4 decades, my mission has been to find and publish the most inspirational and evidence-based thinkers in the world. We've sold more than 1 million downloads of wellness audiobooks over the years, so you can rest assured if it is on the StreetSmart Wisdom Podcast or Wisdom Feed Plus, it is legit and carefully vetted. Welcome. My name is Steve Stein, and I'm the host of the StreetSmart Wisdom Podcast. Today, we have a special guest, Dr. Rick Hanson, best-selling author, incredible speaker, and what we're doing today is a unique thing that we do with some, our wise guides, we call them, people that have been around the block. We call this a wisdom profile. So this is the idea for anyone who's never heard of you, or 30 years from now, or in the space capsule 100 years from now, someone hears this. Who was that guy? And let's get going. So as we do this wisdom profile, who are you and what do you do?
Well, I've been reading a lot of deep Buddhist stuff recently. You can imagine the sort of cosmic answers that could, be there. Or, you could do like the Buddha supposedly did and just hold up a flower. But all that said, so let's see, who am I? I'm a husband, father, a son, a brother, born in America in Stillwater, Oklahoma in the 1950s. Grew up in kind of middle class, lower middle class circumstances in the suburbs of Los Angeles mainly. Went off to college at a young age. I skipped a grade and I have a very late birthday, so I was very young. I went to UCLA at 16 and boom, 1969, caught the huge wave of, first of all, human potential and also a lot of social movements, civil rights, gay rights, women's rights, environmentalism, anti-war, and so forth. And that kind of propelled me in my work. Psychology seemed pretty boring at the time, so I got quite into what could be called contemplative wisdom and kind of wild and woolly human potential stuff. But by the time I was in my 30s, I realized, wow, I better go to grad school. So then I got a PhD in clinical psychology and wrote my first book called Mother Nurture in 2002. And along the way, I became more and more interested in brain science. So I now work, I would say, at the intersection of 3 circles. If you can imagine, first of all, mindfulness, meditation, prayer, the spiritual traditions, the contemplative traditions of the world, all that they offer. That's one circle. Second circle being 100 years of clinical psychology. A lot of tools, a lot of methods, a lot of good stuff there. And the third circle, neuroscience. In the last 20, 30 years, the amount of knowledge about the brain is estimated to have doubled, literally, in just the last 2, 3 decades. So at the center of those circles, the intersection, are both a lot of really interesting, cool ideas and tons of practical things we can do to help ourselves feel less stressed, less anxious, less irritated, less inadequate, less depressed, less addicted. Tons of information there. And not just less of the bad, but more of the good. We can really grow over time traits, stable qualities of inner peace, contentment, resilient well-being, and love. Wow. So I guess that kind of sums up a little bit who I am and what I do.
Got it. And if you add, if you went with the why do you do this? And when you were back in Oklahoma, what did you used to think you were going to be when you grow up?
Well, I was out of Oklahoma about the time by roughly a year old. We then moved there.
Okay.
Yeah, but I didn't have to. I don't know if I had deep thoughts at that point. But and as a kid, I really liked science fiction. I thought, if I could possibly be a space traveler, that would be pretty cool. And I was good at science and math, but I wasn't great at it. And what I really was interested in was the inner life of people. I was really unhappy as a kid, not really my parents' fault, just a lot of complex reasons, including my own. In any case, I was very socially awkward, kind of unhappy. I felt rejected, unseen, unwanted, and like I was just going to fall short my whole life. And that suffering then turned me toward the mind, the inner world. We can act on the outer world and we can act on the inner world. Both are important. I know a lot of people who are very good at acting on the outer world, but for some reason, they're not interested in the inner world or being skillful there. I know a few people who are wonderful meditators. They're very good with the inner world. They could tell you about their neurosis at length, but they're really inept and kind of clueless when it comes to the outer world of, balancing their checkbook or maintaining a job or a relationship. So to me, both are really important. I was motivated by unhappiness, as a lot of people are in the very beginning. Over time, when I look out at the world right now, you just think about this. 8 billion people living on the planet. All the scientists agree, all the leading nonprofit people agree, we could feed everybody, we could protect everybody, we could take good care of everybody on the planet. And yet, for example, roughly 10,000 children a day die of hunger-related causes. Well, for example. So what's available in the outer world is already here. We could make this planet not a utopia, but have it be a lot better for everybody, not just the most fortunate 10, 20% of the population. Why don't we do that? Well, the causes for not doing that are all in the inner world. The Buddha called them out a long time ago: greed, hatred, and delusion. Deep underlying causes: anger, rivalry, possessiveness, jealousy, lack of compassion, lack of empathy, lack of commitment to just simply the truth, telling the truth, and being interested in discovering what the facts actually are. Wow. Lack of common decency for other people, especially people who are, quote unquote, not like me, and basic principles of fairness, commitment to fairness. That's all inner world stuff. So paying attention to the inner world both helps people be happier and is the basis for being able to live with each other on our one precious planet in prosperity and peace.
Got it. Well, since you mentioned that you've been doing a lot of deep Buddhist research or reading recently, So, from a Buddhist perspective, who are you?
Well, yeah, from a Buddhist perspective, uh, things exist. Like there are bodies and there are thoughts. Bodies are tangible, thoughts are intangible, but thoughts exist. Images in the mind are there. Experience, information exists, even if information isn't tangible. And experiences are a kind of tissue of information that we still don't quite understand. But okay. But all that exists emptily. In other words, the nature of every thought and everything is the same. It's made of parts that are connected and changing. Wow. So even the sense of me, Rick, or the sense of you, Steve, it's existing. When you look at it, there's probably some associated body sensations, the sense of Steve, right? But every part of what you imagine or experience as you is occurring as a process, entwining with all kinds of other processes, fluidly, like clouds, not like bricks. And that way of understanding our desires, our sense of self, our dislikes, our likes, that way of understanding them is very liberating. Because when you realize that everything passing through awareness is like a cloud, kind of foamy and insubstantial and incapable of being possessed. And when you even understand that the sense of I is itself foamy and cloud-like and made up, constructed by causes and conditions dependently, arising and passing away, arising and passing away. Wow, you then hold your life more lightly. And you can live more in the present with less friction. As things change, you're not gripping them so tightly because you realize they're like a cloud. You can't hold on to them. And you realize that the hands, the mental hands, if you will, that want to cling or grasp themselves are cloud-like and empty. And so you become a lot more peaceful and free in the unfolding of your own life.
Sweet. And that's a sweet way of looking at, describing it.
Yeah.
Behind the screen, I have a picture of the Kala Chakra mandala. I mean,
All right.
In another time, you might have seen it. And, so we worked with His Holiness when he was at Madison Square Garden in 1990.
Huh.
We did the recording. There were thousands of people. It was incredible. And they had these wonderful monks creating this sand mandala for days, I think 24/7. And, and you get these New Yorkers in their suits and ties coming in and walking past, and it's like worlds colliding.
Yeah.
And then after it was over, I think they went on the Staten Island ferry. They did the beautiful ceremony and they collected the sand. And then they put it into the Hudson River.
Yep.
And, and that just shows the impermanence of life.
That's beautiful. Yeah.
And the way, painstakingly, I'm just thinking, like my son here in the other room, he's 21. He's an intern. His first day of his internship. I look forward to hearing, how it went. But I think of those monks and I think of me and people working diligently their whole life. And you can miss everything. So there's a certain, these monks, they weren't messing around it was beautiful, it was graceful. Every sand was in the exact right, so deliberate. And then, the New Yorker in me is like, who would waste a perfectly beautiful piece of art? What are you doing? But that impermanence, I think, speaks or resonates with what you were describing, who you are from a Buddhist perspective.
Yeah, that's right. And if you think about it, so much of what we do is like that sand mandala, but on a longer time frame. But the essence is still the same. eventually, like the children say, all gone, right? It's funny, Steve. I have a lot of paperwork I've got to process, and every so often I'll stumble on a file folder and it'll ring a very, very dim bell, and I'll open it up and I'll look at it, and I'll see stuff that I was working on 15 years ago, maybe some emails back and forth, some project, maybe I did something. And I invested in it, brought my professional acumen to bear. I worked with good people, and it's all gone. I don't even remember it until I stumble on the file folder and I go, oh, what was that again? And so much of our life is like that. Eventually, our own bodies will be like that sand mandala. And then, so there's no question about what is true. Arising and passing away are true. The only question is, how do we relate to it with StreetSmart wisdom? I like that combination. How do we relate to it with StreetSmart wisdom? And personally, I think there is a lot of StreetSmart wisdom in a lot of quarters. I personally, have gotten interested in early Buddhism, and that's been a major source of it, or in later expressions too, like you're involved with it, the Dalai Lama, and Tibetan Buddhism. Yeah. So, well, let me turn it on you. Let me turn it on you, man. So,
Okay.
Given the reality that we are all a sand mandala, just waiting for the worldly winds to blow us into the river, what are your 1, 2, 3 top guiding principles for how to relate to that fact with StreetSmart wisdom?
Well, that's a good one. I should be able to come up with three, but one for sure.
1 to 3, 1 to 3. Even one is okay.
Well, there's a Brooklyn saying, which I'm sure there's a Buddhist equivalent: do the right thing.
That's pretty good.
You do the right thing. And it's like, whether you're, there's different archetypes of kids. Let's think of, kids in high school. But the right thing is the right thing, and even though someone might steal, someone might do this, or inherently, what the right thing is. And in our other session, you were talking about what we're sensitized into doing things that aren't necessarily the right thing or trigger.
Yeah.
So do the right thing is one of them. Oh, you flipped it on me. That you got me.
I did the right thing here.
No, that's for sure. And I think that just kind of encapsulates the others. So, one other thing I wrote a note down. So I also skipped a grade, and I was born late in the year.
Oh.
So I started college at 16.
Hey.
And I was out of college at 20.
Yeah.
And that harkens back to my son, who just did his first internship, to the building of the sand mandala. And what was my rush? If I could, I'll ask you now, if you could do it again, would you have not skipped?
It's complex. Intellectually, it was good to skip.
Right.
But the reason now more and more people are finding other ways for kids who could skip ahead to not skip ahead is because it creates cost socially. So in some ways, I was always fine with it, that my friends were older, I had a sense of being the youngest guy in the room often, and that was good. But I think also if my parents had been more astute socially, if they'd helped me, if they had a higher emotional intelligence and a higher social intelligence IQ, then I would have been better prepared just to deal with kids and able to kind of be part of it all. And I'm naturally somewhat athletic, so even if I'd been younger, I could have found ways to sort of, be okay, and all that stuff. So I'm going to throw it back to you again. I think this is really rich, and then I know we're going to wrap up in a minute. All right. So what's a second leading guiding principle for you in how to respond to the fact that we are all sand mandalas, beautiful, constructed, and just waiting for the worldly winds to blow us away?
Well, I'm going to answer that with a question, because part of what we do in the wisdom profile is we ask this question, and I'll answer it for myself first, is when I was young, my mom passed away, and that was kind of the catalyst that put me on a journey in recording things and doing that. So if you were a superhero, what would your origin story be? Was there some thing that now I know why, not only what, now why you turn into who you are? Was there one catalyst or one thing that?
That's interesting. Well, I think I'll step out of the framing of superhero, but I think your question's really beautiful, and it really speaks to central themes for a person's life. Maybe I'll just finish with this in a way that I invite other people to find their own examples of the two major themes I'm going to name here. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
Then, as you know, I have to go soon.
No,
so it's
perfect.
I'll be short. The first is I've written about it in Buddhist Brain. A really central experience occurred when I was probably about 6 years old. Our family was living in Illinois at the time, and in the experience, I'm very self-aware. I'm outside our home. It's the late afternoon. It's toward dusk. It's chilly. There'd been a recent rain. We lived on the edge of cornfields, kind of these tract homes on the edge of cornfields, and there were ruts in the ground left by heavy trucks and tractors that were full of water. I was aware of that. And I looked back at my house and I could see the kind of yellow light coming through the windows. And I just felt wistful and sad. And I looked at my house and I was very self-aware that for all kinds of reasons, happiness was being sucked out of the air in that home. And I saw in the distance these hillsides that as the sun was setting and their lights started coming on, and these street lights and homes lit up in the distance. And I just had this very clear sense that it was up to me. I wasn't angry. I was more like wistful and musing, but there's a profoundly clear sense that it was up to me. It was up to me to find my way, metaphorically, to those other homes, to those lights, to those people, and to my people long term. Mm-hmm. And that was very real for me, that it was really on me. And I very early on was on my own side. I was for myself. I was not very compassionate toward myself, but I was in a muscular way an ally to myself, encouraging myself. And I realized, rescue is not coming. Like I had no fantasy whatsoever of rescue coming. It was up to me. And so I think that's a very deep thing. And that's been a central theme in my own life. The sense of agency in both the inner and the outer worlds, that we claim the power we do have. We reject the Kobayashi Maru scenario from Star Trek, the no-win scenario. We just say, no. We're with Viktor Frankl, Auschwitz, not Auschwitz, I think Birkenau, but a Holocaust survivor who just said the fundamental freedom inside us is to choose how we will respond, even in the worst moment or day of our life. That was very central. And then another one much later, which is more relevant to my career, I was in college. I think I was I was involved in what was called an orientation program at UCLA. So I was probably 18 or 19. And I remember walking with, I'll say, young woman coming in as a freshman. It wasn't flirtatious or romantic. She was talking with me about her problems, her concerns, her worries. And I just found all this natural wisdom, this natural talent flowing through me as a natural therapist, really, a natural counselor. And wow, I had no idea. It was like suddenly picking up a guitar and very, very rapidly discovering, wow, I can really play. I can play with the big kids, I can do this. I can run with the big dogs. And whoa, wow, and that was really quite startling. That was a key experience for me. All right.
Wow, very empowering. 6 years old. Wow. And good stuff. And real quick, how can people find you?
Oh, thanks again. Just Google my name, Rick Hanson, S-O-N. My website's chock full of freely offered materials. You're very welcome to take a look at the very well-structured and well-priced various online courses and programs and around various topics that we also have there. And I'm fairly prolific. Plus I've been doing it for a while. There's a lot of spray out there in the world. And just Google my name.
That's wonderful. And my name is Stein. I'm the host of the StreetSmart Wisdom Podcast. And this has been a succinct and I think a meaningful wisdom profile with Rick Hanson. Thanks so much, Rick.
Oh, thank you. A pleasure, Steve.
All right. If you like the StreetSmart Wisdom Podcast, we invite you to become a Wisdom Feed Plus member. You'll have direct and on-demand access to some of the most compelling and relevant thinkers in the world. And it's all highly curated and designed to help you be your best you. Change your mind, change your life. If you're like the rest of us in this insane world filled with stress and uncertainty, Wisdom Feed Plus can help you smile more and stress less. That's exactly why our team has created Wisdom Feed Plus, a wonderful community of inspired individuals in search of health, wellness, and a life of abundance. When you become a member, you don't just get access to a broad array of meditations, yoga, qigong, and live events. You become part of an inner movement and a growing community of like-minded people along the Wisdom Feed Plus success path. Your personalized journey to a peaceful and satisfied life. Go to surfingthetsunami.com to get started.